I'm often asked by new authors whether one book is enough to really make an impact in their world, enough to make a living. And quite a bit of the time I say, no, not really. But there are exceptions to the rule. In fact, actually today's guest is that specific exception because he's only published one title. But he's managed to walk away from his day job and employ himself full time and get it to where he doesn't have to worry about going back to corporate America. His name is Jason Stallworth. Now, we're kindred spirits. I'd have met him, oh gosh, a good handful of years ago. I think I was 2 years into the business of YouTube, and he commented on one of my videos about self-publishing. I went and checked out his channel. Lo and behold, he's a metal guitarist. Love what he's doing over there. I continue to love what he's doing. In fact, he's expanded as a musician and he's even expanded as an author. So now he's not just having to rely on one form of income in one book. He's looking at many different avenues and has that book being an ancillary part to his whole system. So without any further ado, it's with pleasure that I introduce a good friend of mine, Jason Stallworth. Let's get into that interview. Now, Jason, this has been a long time in the making, man. I don't know what took us so long. I've been interviewing, well over 100 guests, but we've known each other for going on 4 or 5 years more?
Yeah, at least that. Yeah, it seems like 20 years, but maybe it's just been 4 or 5.
It probably helps. You and I are really good friends, so much so that I drove all the way down to Florida to surprise you at your house.
That was so amazing. You're like, hey, you got a Metallica sticker on the back of your car. I'm like, how do you know that? Like, did you see a picture? and you're like, look out front. I'm like, there you are. I'm like, it was such an awesome. My heart was full that day. My wife and both our hearts were full that day. So thank you for that. That was an awesome surprise.
I know you were bummed because you were getting ready to go to meet up with some friends. And I was like, dude, no. It was the whole point was to just surprise you and just get a good reaction and such because we were on such a time crunch. Well, at any rate, so what led you over to self-publishing with Dale? What was one of the ways? Because I know you discovered me, and then when I discovered you commenting on things, I became an instant fan.
Well, this is the beauty of, and this is an old school term now, SEO, right? This is the beauty of having content that serves and gives value to other people, that it's searchable, because that's how I found you. I found you, and I don't remember the exact search phrase, but I had always wanted to write a book. I've always written my entire life. You know me as a musician, but I'm also a writer. I consider myself a writer, and I was dying to publish something. So I was doing all kind of searches, and your videos kept popping up, and the one particular one that kept popping up. So, of course, I see you on there. I see the guitar in the background, and I'm getting value out of this because, I know we'll get into this, but you are the reason that I published my first book. Or at least that I published it at that time, because I was just having so many hangups. I'm like, I don't know where to start, which that's probably a lot of what you hear, and it's the reason why you do what you do, because people just don't know where to start, or they get to a certain point, it's like, I don't know what to do next, right? We hit these hurdles. But yeah, I saw the guitar on the wall. I'm like, dude, you're a guitar player. So of course you reached out to me after that, and then here we are, man.
Yeah, it was crazy. I don't think a lot of people realize this, that I take pride in answering all my comments. And then to a certain extent, sometimes I just go snooping around. I'll go look at people's YouTube channel, and I went and clicked on yours, and I'm like, this guy is a metalhead. Are you kidding me? And he shreds on guitar as well. So let's back up just a little bit, because you talked about getting into a book. What were some of those issues that you had first coming into the business of self-publishing, and how did you overcome those?
Well, for one, formatting was a big thing for me. I didn't know what format. I knew I could just open, Apple Pages and start typing away, right? I knew I could do that and get the content out, but I wasn't sure, like, what format does it have to be in? If I write it in this format here, am I going to have to, like, just redo the entire thing? So that was kind of, how many times have you and I, and, we live and learn, right? Have we done all this work only to have to redo it again? So I didn't want to put myself in that position.
I feel your pain too well.
Yeah. So it was that, and it was like, well, where do I go publish it? Okay, well, I'm familiar with Kindle, and this is back in 2016 when I started working on it, I believe, or 2017, end of 16 and beginning of 17, somewhere around that range. But just so many questions. I mean, on like formatting, on where do I publish it? Well, how do I publish it? I'm familiar with publishing music. I go through a company called CD Baby where you submit your music and they put it out there on all platforms, Spotify, iTunes, and so forth, and then they collect the royalties for you. So was it something similar to that? How do I do that? So I had a ton of questions. It wasn't just one particular question. I just had a question about everything, and then you get overwhelmed by all these questions. You're like,
gosh, yeah.
Where do I start? I just needed somebody to kind of hold my hand just for a little bit,
It was really cool to see you take the bull by the horns, because I know as soon as you started getting the information, I swear it seemed like not too long after you had ended up publishing your first book. Share a little bit with me about publishing your first book. What was that journey like for you, and how did it feel for you to finally get it out into the world?
Well, the beautiful part is when you have all of those other questions answered and you have someone helping you and guiding you, and even if you had to reach out to somebody to hire them to do certain parts, right? You can hire the editing, you can outsource that. When you don't have all of those concerns, you can focus on the one thing that's important, and that's your content. So I'd already kind of started the book, but once I had those questions answered, I'm like, okay, I've got the path. This is laid out for me, and I've got help. I've got your guidance here, and Ava as well, right? She did the editing for me. So that was a big relief, and I think it's important to kind of have that part taken care of so that you can focus on the important part, and again, that's the content. So up to that point, of the release, it was exciting. I mean, it was like, okay, this is a published book that someone can buy on Amazon, and of course they can get the Kindle, but of course I like paperback, and a lot of my people like paperback, so they can get it and they'll send pictures. I just had Riff with Cliff at Replay Guitar Exchange. He's like, dude, I didn't know you had a book. So he ordered it that day. Like 2 days later, he sends me a picture on his phone. He texts me a picture of the book. I'm like, man, that's so cool. So I get people doing this. And that's such a feeling of accomplishment, especially if there's information in that book. You and I are big on helping people. You and I are super huge on giving value. I'd be willing to say that if it doesn't give value, we probably won't even bother putting it out there, right? There's an entertainment aspect to it, of course, right? I'm a musician, so there are things like the risk, but I also want to give value in everything as well. So I really was hoping the book would inspire people, to pursue their dreams as well. That's what it's all about. So just to hear the feedback from people and to see the pictures on Instagram, people tagging me and that sort of thing, it's just cool, man. There's no experience like that.
About the time I think that we got connected, you had roughly about 6,000 subscribers on YouTube. So it was a significant chunk of folks. So how was the launch for that? Was your community behind you all the way? And now that you've grown to how many subscribers now?
I'm right at 66,000 now. So we're growing.
So 10 times as much. Have you continued to see the same success for your book as you did on day one?
I am actually. I'm seeing more success now. Day one, I did have quite a few sales. I want to say, and I apologize, I don't recall the exact numbers. Maybe it was about 20 book sales within that first week, maybe a few days.
Good.
But now I can say my success rate, and it's not like I'm not a millionaire from the book or anything like that, because I have other things that I focus on product wise that render a little bit better results as far as the financial return. However, and I'll just give this little secret away, you already know it, it's in my email funnel. My book is in my email funnel when people sign up for the free guide for metal guitar. I can't remember where it is in the funnel, but everybody that signs up will see that email. So I make consistent sales off my book every month.
Wow, very cool. It's interesting to hear you talk a little bit about the funnel. Let's walk back just a little bit, because I think it's important that we maybe discuss a little bit more about an email marketing plan, an email list, if you will. Why did you go to building an email list? Because I see a lot of YouTubers that don't even bother with it.
Well, it's the thing of real estate. If you think about it, you have the most important, most valuable piece of real estate from that person when you have their email address. That's the way I look at that. Sure, I can put a YouTube video out, along with my book, which my link to my book is also in my YouTube description. I have links to my music. Of course, you have to have it there, right?
Well done.
So I've got the link to the book, Heavy Metal and Weights. I've got the link to my albums, and I know in marketing, you and I are taught that really you should have that one call to action. But hey, when you got something like a YouTube description, put all your links in there. In my opinion, I've got courses, guitar courses. I've got all kind of things. I've got Patreon now. I've got, if you want to buy Jason a beer free and donate to PayPal, I've had somebody send me $50 one time on that. Right.
Man.
So you give people the opportunity.
Is that why you drunk and texted me the other day?
Yes, that's why you got the drunk dial, dude. I think it's good to have those in there. Now, if your video is very specific to one particular thing, like my video is about the book, like the launch or something like that, I'll still have those links at the bottom, all of them, but my first link at the very top is going to be geared towards what that video is targeting, right? So that's there. But going back to the email, and I apologize, going back to the email, I like to give away something of value, because if you give that away and people are like, oh man, this really actually helped me, they want to give you money after that. They're like, how can I give you money? What do you have? I want to send you something, So you pull them in. You give your best value up front. And it's not that everything else is not of value. Of course it is. But you show them that you care about their success in playing guitar and writing books, publishing books, whatever that may be. If you're an author and you're not running a business per se, what's your genre? What's your topic? How can you give that person value that's related to what you're selling, to your product, right? So you give that first, and then you pull them in that way, and they become what I like to call super fans at that point.
Nice. And I know you've got your fair share of super fans, because I've been on a few of your lives before, and it's just absolutely incredible to see the community that you've built. And speaking of community, let's come back just a little bit to your book, because the book is kind of just a small part of the bigger Jason Stallworth community. So share with me how you built your community around this YouTube channel and then around this book. So, how did that grow out for you?
Well, so I started YouTube in 2010. Dale, it took 10 years from June 2010 to June 2020 for me to hit 10,000 subscribers. And a lot of people would have just kind of thrown in the towel at that point. I had put some videos out there that were all metal guitar related. My channel's, metal guitar driven. And I had lessons on there, sharing things, sharing methods and that sort of thing, talking about gear and tones and just the fun stuff. But I don't know that I never really took it as serious as I should have. And then one video I released in 2019, and this is about when I started really taking the channel more serious. This is a couple years after releasing the book. Everything was starting to really, by that point I had 3 albums out. I had a book out. It's like, okay, I need to double down on this. I need to get really serious about what I'm doing here and figure out a strategy, not just, hey, I'm going to throw a video out every now and then and I'll just put whatever out there. But I released a metal guitar for beginners. 6 things you must know in all caps. I released that in 2019, and man, the channel just YouTube liked it, and I guess other people liked it, and it just took off, and it doubled in size within 8 months, and every year thereafter it's doubled in size. So building the audience, what I've learned is it's all about giving value, and people don't necessarily fall in love with the book. They'll love the book. They don't necessarily fall in love with the music, but they'll love the music, or my courses, right? But they'll still love the courses. They really fall in love in marketing what we call the attractive character. I'm not saying all this is attractive, although, Dale, I think me and you both are attractive dudes.
Doing all right for ourselves.
We're doing okay, right? And I love how you've stayed. I mean, I know you're a trainer and all that, but you've stayed in just, lean, muscular shape practically your entire life. So I love that about you. No guns allowed, right?
Just once.
Oh man. But, you give value in the way that you give it. You be authentic, you be original, be yourself, and people will love you. Some won't love you. That's okay. Let them go. They're not for you, right? You don't want to be in a relationship with someone that doesn't like you. even if it's a YouTube relationship. So you're going to attract certain people, and just be okay with your authentic self attracting a certain type of person. And they come into your world, and then you have all these other things that you're offering them, and they will support you. They will sustain you. I'm living proof of that. I left my corporate job. I had a really nice corporate job. I left that over 3 years ago now.
It's pretty incredible. You've been so successful. And YouTube, we can always say, yeah, YouTube can kind of help pay the bills and such, but you have a music channel, so it's harder to monetize it through the YouTube Partner Program. So you've got this book, but if we just were to rely on those two assets alone, would you be able to make it, or would you have had to return to your corporate job?
No, I would not. I would not be able to make it just on book sales alone today. I would not be able to make it just on album sales alone today, or streaming, I should say. I would not be able to make it, Dale, on all of those things combined.
Wow. So what did you do to get it to where you can support yourself sufficiently? Because, I mean, you live in a beautiful neighborhood down in Florida, just gorgeous place. You're living a pretty dang good life, because there's been some streams where you're right next to your stinking pool and the beautiful blue skies surrounding you and everything else like that. So since I know you're not a drug dealer, there has to be something that you're helping to sustain your quality of life and your lifestyle. So share with me, if it's not the books and it's not YouTube and it's not the music, how were you able to build this business here?
It revolves around giving the value that's desired. Okay. So I started asking my audience, and this is important, this is a very important takeaway as you're building your audience, even the smallest of audience, that you stay in communication with them. Don't assume you know what they want. Don't. Okay? I'm going to create this thing and everybody's going to love it. I don't recommend going that route. I recommend getting to know people and asking, what are their pain points? Where are their struggles at? What are some of the questions that they need answered? And then start thinking about some things you can give them as solutions. So my solution to many of the problems that I was picking up on from my audience, reading the comments, responding to them, getting to know them, having conversations, was that, hey, we'd like a course. So I released my first guitar course. I didn't want to do lessons because I don't, Dale, you and I, we don't really like the idea of trading time for money. I mean, I play some live gigs, I do that on the side, which that helps supplement income as well. I'm trading time for money playing the gigs, but I repurpose those for YouTube, and I can turn those down if I want, right? You and I do not want to be mastered by any person or entity. We just won't have it because that's called a job. So you and I, we have learned the art of I don't want to say passive income. I think passive income can be misconstrued because there has to be activity, right? In other words, you have to be giving something, you have to be pursuing something, giving the value. But a lot of things can be set on autopilot. I made the course one time. I put the album out one time. You and I, we make YouTube videos. That YouTube video goes out, and that can capitalize, right? And that can compound. These books that we're talking about, hey, you can continue writing books, or you can write one book. It's always going to be out there, right? But I think you have to diversify. The guitar courses is what made it for me. And I think the first course that I released, called Metal Riff Master, which is just a metal guitar course. That was released, I believe, in 2020, around May 2020, or maybe it's 2021. Okay. And I'll tell you, I was at the end of the ropes there. We were kind of at a bad spot. I'd already been away from my job for a bit there. Once I released that course, everything changed. There have been plenty of uncertainties. I'm not giving you some massive success. Well, I did this one thing and everything just changed. No, there have been ups and downs. But This is why, though, you have to diversify yourself. It's not just the courses either. That's the bulk of it. It's the courses. It's my book. It's the albums. It's the merch sales, right? I started, you can do Patreon. Some people don't care for Patreon, so they do something else. But you can have monthly subscriptions, right? There are plenty of websites allow that to happen. Now YouTube, and YouTube's part of the income stream too, Dale. I get a decent cut from that each month. So nice. All these things combined from like 6, 7, maybe even 8 income streams, you can do this. and it opens your eyes. But, I think you would agree with me. Don't just rely on the book, right? You write a book, I'm going to be the biggest seller out there, and it doesn't happen. So you get discouraged and you quit, or you complain, and you're just like, well, blah, 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 and the truth is you have to build other streams around that. In building those other streams around that, well, that just like everything just kind of like takes off in an upward direction. You want more book sales? Build some other streams around that, right? Get known, get out there. And as you build those other income streams, well, guess what? That's going to help sell your book as well.
Jason, we managed to blast through time so fast. It's always just great getting to chat with you. I appreciate you being so transparent and sharing some of your journey and your struggles and successes. So I think it's fitting that we finish up this podcast interview with one question I like to ask all guests, and that is, what advice would you have for aspiring authors and self-publishers out there?
Go all in is my first piece of advice. Be consistent. Go all in. Have a plan, right? Diversify your income streams as you grow, as you get that first book. So, for example, maybe you're writing a book about fantasy. Well, maybe you want to start a YouTube channel related to fantasy and just give another perspective, right? Well, that's a way to market your book as well. And I know you're probably just asking for one piece of advice here, but I guess the one piece of advice I would give is just don't give up. Don't give up no matter what.